Okay, free radicals, welcome back. I'm Dave, and this is the Radical Independent. Thanks for watching and for subscribing. Please don't forget, if you can help me out, I know people right now are stocking up on supplies, and the cash flow might not be where it once was, but if you have a few bucks of disposable income, or if the Fed decides to bail you out as an individual like they did the financial markets to the tune of, what, $1.6 trillion? 1.6. I need to talk about that in another video. Please, if you feel like you want to support davidjspuria at gmx.com for one-time PayPal donations. I'm feeling a little lonely because I get moody, and then my perspectives are very much different from, all these other channels that just conspiracy now. I'm not there on the voting conspiracy, not there. I'm more on the conspiracy, if you want to look at it as a conspiracy, of blacking out, not allowing Tulsi Gabbard's name to be on any kind of a leaderboard anywhere, even if she's got 5%, which is this is what she has nationally, I believe now. All right, but it's just, we're going to list Biden and Bernie, and then the top of Tulsi's nicely coiffed hair, then you won't see who that is. Okay, that's to me more of a conspiracy. Now, if the voting machines across the country, 98% of the time, are faulty, then we can't have an election. We need to halt all elections. If you're going to make a claim like that, and if you're going to go running around saying this is why Bernie Sanders lost, you go running around and you say that to everybody, then you need receipts. You need like James O'Keefe style reporting. You need undercover reporting where people basically say, yeah, we can do whatever we want with these voting machines to get the result that we really want. If that's true, then we should not be having elections. They should be halted. And quite honestly, with this coronavirus thing, we should probably be halting every single election. I know in Florida, supposedly on Tuesday, people are going to go out and vote. By the way, there's no conspiracy here. Florida and Georgia, where Joe Biden has huge leads. And by the way, Joe Biden has led in the state of Florida the entire time. So it's not a conspiracy if Biden wins Florida and wins it big. Now, of course, there is a debate tonight, and that debate will not include Tulsi Gabbard. And if it did, you'd see voters peeling themselves away from both Biden and Sanders and voting for somebody who might actually last their entire first term. And I do mean that. Older folks are vulnerable to things like the virus we have out there now. And somebody with a heart condition, very vulnerable. Somebody who's had multiple issues, including onset Parkinson's or dementia. I would think that would be somebody who would also probably be a target for a virus like this. I think you'd want somebody young and healthy and with a fresh outlook and a aloha spirit. And no, I'm not just trying to blow smoke. I mean, don't you want somebody who can inspire the country in a moment like we're in right now? Apparently people don't care. They would rather just stick with what they have. They either go with the orange orangutan, or they move to the guy with hair plugs who I think may be starting to lose his faculties. And then, of course, there's Bernie, right? Bernie, who will support Joe, and who said Joe's a friend, and he likes Joe, and he's cozied up with Russiagate, and he's cozied up with Ukrainegate. And Trump is not the most dangerous president we've ever had, especially when it comes to the military-industrial complex. You give Joe Biden the codes, the nuclear codes, he might be having a bad day and walk right off camera, and then he might just press the button. And then what? And I know that's kind of facetious, and it's not as simple as him walking over and pressing a button. At least I don't think it is. It might be. But I think people need to sort of rein in the conspiracies, because as soon as you start going down that road, you're the same as Rachel Maddow. All right? Now, again, if you think all the voting machines in the country are rigged, or, they can switch votes, then, again, we shouldn't be having elections, and we need receipts. We need real hardcore evidence that is occurring. I want to see it in real time. We need, again, like James O'Keefe style reporting, and something that goes undercover and has, voting people that are running voting precincts to say, hey, yeah, we can pretty much do what we want to do. And you show me that, I might start to listen to it. But I think part of the fatigue that I have is that this has been going on for 4 years with Donald Trump, right? If you look at Donald Trump's election, he shouldn't have been elected. There's no way he could have been elected. There's no possibility. Hillary Clinton was a horrible campaign. She didn't campaign in certain states, and Trump took advantage of that. Trump had huge rallies around the country. Trump was advocating for things that Hillary Clinton wasn't really talking about. The trade deals and the immigration situation and things you might not agree with, but you knew where Donald Trump stood. And here we are now, and people are coming along saying, well, keep in mind, the Hillary folks came along and said, well, the whole thing was rigged against me. Even though the rigging, I think, had started long before, and it was folks within the national security state who were trying to manipulate things so Hillary Clinton would win. They didn't try hard enough, or maybe it wasn't that they were rigging it per se, but just influencing and trying to get people to come along and say, hey, well, if Trump actually wins this, then we'll launch some kind of coup to try to get him out of the White House. And they've tried everything they possibly can, and they failed. So when the Bernie folks are coming along and they're telling me, hey, these voting machines don't work, right? All of them, every single one of them don't work. 98% of the time, they don't function properly. Okay, look, this isn't the Debbie Wasserman Schultz thing with the ballots in the back of the van and yes, they're in some place, Broward County, I think you'd want to just close that down and not let people vote there for another, 50 years, so new people can come in, and I don't know. I don't know. After that amount of rigging and corruption, the whole thing over there should be just shut down. You've lost your privilege to vote. Move to another county if you want to be able to vote. Something that drastic. I know that sounds harsh, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but something would have to be done, and it would need to be pretty strong, and that would be a pretty strong message. But, everyone talks about the rigging and so forth. Now, this is the excuse machine that's kicked in for Bernie. And rather than people saying, you know what, maybe I should look at some other way of doing this. Tulsi's still in the race. I could go support her. Yeah, I could support Tulsi Gabbard because she's got a real chance of doing some damage if we start to throw our support over there. People are going to start hearing her message. Her message is full strength. It's not watered down. She's not going to pander. She's not going to apologize. She's not going to embrace conspiracies and hoaxes, okay? By the way, Tulsi Gabbard has a solution to the voting problem, where basically we're going to have paper ballots to back up the other ones, the other votes, and at the end you would compare the paper ballots to the actual electronic votes that were taken and to see if those match. And if they don't match, we have a problem. But that ensures election integrity, and you have to have that. Before an election, you should have election integrity, and nobody's really pushing that. Bernie's not really pushing. I'm sure he said it, but again, this is the difference between leadership and kind of just going with the flow of all of your supporters who are just pushing you along financially. See, with Tulsi Gabbard, you get a real hardcore message. Then you get people who dig deep and they pull out money and they say, okay, this is why I'm spending this. It's not because I'm spending it because any blue will do. I'm spending on this person because they're different. They truly mean what they say. You can tell, you can hear it, it's sincere. And for the most part, her message has been rejected. And more importantly, if you want to stoke conspiracy theory, and it's an easy one to document, you can see all of the times where Tulsi Gabbard was put on the defense in interviews about things like, I don't know, Assad, that would be one of the bigger ones, and her lack of LGBT support. There's another one that they kept throwing at her, and they continue to throw at her because of her beliefs as a younger person and how her family raised her and so forth. I mean, it just gets weird, but they keep throwing these same memes out there. She's really a hawk. She talks like a dove, but she's really... I mean, you can go on, and none of it is true. None of it is true. So she's had to weather this, whereas nobody's been throwing this stuff at Bernie Sanders. Sanders has gotten a huge platform. And you know why he got a huge platform? Money. Now, it's not corrupt money, it's money from small donors, but see, money talks in elections. And it's unfair that his voice was amplified because people gave money. It's not good when a billionaire does it, and it's not any better when small donors do it. The reason I say it is because if your message is better than the other person's message, it should be heard regardless of how much money is in the campaign coffers. Just saying. And Tulsi Gabbard is a far better candidate, and it's more of a conspiracy to me as to why she didn't catch on. And there are a number of things that you would think are easily investigated if anybody in the media wants to do their job. They don't. Progressive and indie media can't do this alone. They can't do it alone. They've been trying. It's an uphill battle, and some of the coverage, because it's so Bernie focused, it hasn't done any good for Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard answered the other day when she was talking to Jimmy Dore, has the Bernie campaign reached out to you at all? No. She just said no. She may agree with Bernie on some stuff, but I don't think Tulsi Gabbard is all that thrilled right now with the way the Sanders campaign has treated her after she put her, reputation out there and her career and everything else. And she said, hey, I'm stepping down as the DNC chair, and you know what? I'm going to endorse you, Bernie. So the conspiracy isn't necessarily the voting machines. It could be the voting machines, and if it is, and you've got receipts and you can show them, I say shut everything down. No election. And see, by the way, and you'll have more conspiracies. See, this is what Trump wants. Trump wants this to be no election. This is going to be like he's going to get a second term, a third term. He's never going to leave because the system is so corrupt. And that's going to play into that crowd. And folks, what we need to do is have paper ballots. And we need people to count the paper ballots. And we need those paper ballots being counted on video, where people can basically film others counting the ballots and entering the information. And yes, there is human error. This is just how the world works. But elections seem to run okay for hundreds of years without this kind of concern. And if you haven't noticed, technology is really screwing the world up. It's a 24-hour news cycle about this virus. I've never seen people so scared and so overwhelmed with insecurity and grief and so forth. I've never seen it like this. And you start to think to yourself that the system is here in place, and it creates this kind of chaos. And if it's creating this kind of chaos in the outside world, well, what kind of chaos does it create in the voting world? It's just, you can't imagine. So, yes, I will say this at the end of the video. If this is rigged, if it's intrinsically rigged, then it's over. And elections don't matter. They don't matter. That's the bottom line. So if you can prove your point, I'll be in the streets with you marching, saying that we need to reform the entire voting system and that we need to go back to straight up paper ballots, and we need people to count them and recount them and count them again and get the most secure vote we possibly can. And there are a bunch of people out there who should be able to vote, who don't register to vote, but who are citizens, who might want to vote, who don't like the process. Make it as easy as possible. And then let the chips fall where they may. But at the end of that, if your candidate still loses and loses catastrophically, you got no excuse. Your candidate isn't that good. In the case of Bernie Sanders, I empathize with his team because they thought they had this, but their candidate, quite honestly, is ineffective and isn't the right person at this time for this job. So that's my video. Again, davidjspuria at gmx.com for PayPal donations. I know it's rough out there, so you may not have the finances available right now to donate to the channel. Just keep watching, subscribing. A lot of people are indoors, hunkered down. You can put the videos on an endless loop, repeat play. Go read a book while that happens. You don't have to listen to me talk anymore. And who knows? Maybe my channel will continue to grow. But I am different from some of the other people that do this. I speak my mind from my heart, and I'm not really concerned who I offend, so I think more of us need to do that. Even if you don't agree with me, you have to at least acknowledge that there needs to be more in the way of individual thinking versus the group think that's even pervasive within the so-called progressive movement. Okay, talk to you soon. See you then.